Welcome to Tinker Tailor Gamer Scribe. It's been a little while since I've done video, so in order to stay in practice with the editing and all of that stuff, I figured I would do the latest update to Divine Retribution in video form. So, where I left off last time, I dumped it into Cura to make the G code to print, and my goal was to see what I could do about keeping it nice and sturdy while also not running into errors with the definition on the top of the disk. I fiddled with some stuff. The reason why I'm not showing it is because I ended up not making any of those changes. I was not getting the effects I was desiring within the slicer. I mean, it just nothing was changing notably enough for me to risk it. So I just went with the regular settings, and then I'll do all of the detail by hand, and then that will be a video down the line. But so what you're looking at here is a test I ran. This is actually the fourth test and the first success that I ran. So we originally shot for the size of the disk to be 10 inches because that is supposed to be the print area of my printer. Well, it turns out that it is not, and it is more like 9.5. So what you are looking at is the first successful test of what exactly the maximum just the maximum ability size-wise for my printer to print. So it can actually go a little bit further than you see here, right to left on the x-axis, but this is the absolute maximum for the y-axis right here. I mean, like, seriously, I did a test after this just to make sure, where I only increased the size of this print by 1 millimeter, and it was making my printer go chunk, chunk, chunk here on the back part. So, so this is literally as big as it gets on my printer, and it's just over, I mean, like fractionally, nominally, just over 9.5 inches. So, and then this was actually what would be the first layer of the disc. So you can see where it did all of the holes for the for setting things up on it. But so I got my success, and that made me happy. So we knew exactly how big it could be. Like I said, we were shooting for 10, ended up 9.5, so the reduction in size was acceptable. So I started printing, and this here, I think this is maybe third layer. It's putting on the third layer, fourth layer right now. So you can see again all of the little holes that will be the mounting point for, so that it can be worn, and then the disc is supposed to be shrouded in flames, so that's attachment points for the flames and stuff too. And then just to be on the safe side, I put some support material. It shouldn't have needed it, but it was one of those things where I had a full roll of filament, so I had the plastic there. I'd rather not take the risk and risk botching it somewhere. I mean, especially once it gets like, a quarter of the way up, or, because then it would just be a significant waste in plastic. So put support material in just to be on the safe side. So as the print progressed, you can see, so this, I think this was the picture I took right before I went to bed that night. For whatever reason, this section right here in the support material was just having a hard time. And you can see where it kind of broke off a little bit here, but not as bad. Here is where it was the worst. But you can see, I mean, the disc itself is forming just fine. Now, I mentioned that I'm using that cubic infill for Cura instead of the grid, which I am absolutely loving. It is such a fantastic, I mean, it's the way to go as far as I'm concerned. So, but yeah, so it built up, it was building up, and we're having some issues with the support, and actually you'll see where that gets even worse later on. But it is not like a sad story. So yeah, you can see here like it's broken off. I mean, it's just straight up broken apart from the thing. This area here was actually sticking up above, and so when it was printing the infill, it would the fan shroud would catch on it. So I ended up having to trim it down with my flush cutters, just because I didn't want to make, I didn't want bad to become a failure. So I'd rather it stay bad and get a complete print, because I mean, even if the underside of the disc looked bad, it wouldn't be disastrous, at least theoretically. So then, but like 3D printers have this magical ability to do everything kind of mostly corrects itself if you don't fuss with it too much. So that's what you see here. It's basically back in order. and then, yeah, it's a different view, sorry. Oh, there we go. So as it was actually building up over, something went a little bit wrong. Like not disastrously wrong, thank goodness, but you can see where it was kind of starting to spaghetti. I'd stepped away. I mean, this was like literally maybe 2 hours after this picture. I mean, you can see that there's not a whole lot of size increase. And so yeah, something happened and it went wonky. Like I'm thinking that it might have, because you see how like it's having some issues forming this part of the dome against the support material. That maybe the extruder nozzle caught one and dragged it over, and and started a little baby mess. Anyway, so I had to trim some of that down with the flush cutters. But by the time the whole dome finishes, you can see there was no real issue, which is actually partially why I'm glad that I kept the overall thickness what I did, because I went with the sidewall here is 1.5 millimeters. So I'm glad I kept the overall thickness, to and not sacrifice that for the definition here that you'll see. And now this is just the base layers of it, so there's not much to it. But as it develops, you can see where it's like the Chinese characters here, and everything really kind of came into fruition. I actually got kind of worried here because you can see how these rings are offset. I don't know why Kira decided to do that, but it scared me a little bit, because I did not want, obviously the finished version to be offset like that, because it wasn't making any sense, because it was just the rings and not the disc itself. See, the disc, at its edge remains round. So I was confused, and honestly, I still don't know why it did it, but I jumped into Kira and saw that it was an intentional thing that Kira was doing, and that when you move past it, the rings were coming together, and they were just fine. So like you can see here, where it's pretty much done doing all of the infill portion, and it's literally just finishing up the top, that the rings, there's not too many rings, they're meeting up just like they should. So yeah, I was worried there for a second, but so that is it. This was about, I don't know, an hour and a half away from finished. I will put a picture in the post of what the finished one looked like. I might tack it on to the end of the video too, but there won't be any narration, because I'm doing this live, not like I usually do, where I record the sound separate. So anyway, so yeah, it came together well, and then of course, when I tried to take it off of here, that's when I broke my glass. So I didn't get to print the little nub that goes in the middle, so I had AJ print one up for me. It only took like 20 minutes, I think he said. So when you see the picture of the actual printed one, the reason why the nub is red was because he printed it up for me. in the interim between my glass breaking and getting the replacement glass for my print bed. So, but yeah, so that's it. Like I said, I'll probably, maybe while I'm gabbing right now, tack it in so you can see the finished product. And it's looking pretty good. I got to talk to the person who wants this thing, and the nub is not big enough, so I will be messing with that, but I'm not going to make that any special post or anything. So that's it. The next update will probably, well, actually probably will be a video, a time lapse of me doing all of the definition work on there. So you'll get to see some of the tricks that I use to restore, and I'll take some close-up pictures so you can see exactly what I'm talking about that I need to fix. But yeah, that'll be next time. Until then.